wife and Christina or her family history. That's not my intent. Now, I might as well apologize now. My refutation presentation is on the Armenian genocide as submitted by Christina. In her oral presentation, she made several claims of fact, the historical relevance and the many contributions made by the Armenian people, the definition of the word genocide as it pertains in a global society, statistical data on how many Armenians were murdered during the Ottoman occupation, and most importantly, the displacement of so many Armenians today. Christina's presentation was very informative about the Armenian society, and there were several elements that required clarification to the claim of fact. Although the historical contributions are still significant by today's standards, their current contributions have been in support of the Russian government and the Russian military, for example, the design of the MiG aircraft. The International Court of Justice, the ICJ, located in The Hague, Netherlands, is affiliated with the United Nations. The ICJ is the principal judicial branch of the United Nations. It was established in 1945 and consists of 15 judges who are elected for a 9-year term by the United Nations General Assembly and the Security Council. This governing body settles legal disputes and disagreements between countries in accordance with international law. The ICJ has not acknowledged the genocide in favor of the Armenian people. The ICJ has not used the term genocide to categorize the events of 1915. In 2009, the Queen's Counsel, Mr. Godfrey Robertson, a distinguished British lawyer, did a complete analysis of the fact and legal documents pertaining to the Armenian issue. In his conclusion, he quotes, "Erroneous and illogical arguments are given today to avoid giving truthful answers about the Armenian genocide and preventing cause discomfort for the Turkish government. One of them is requesting the support of historians for the solution of a legal issue. The issue of genocide is a matter of court judgment according to international law, and by no means is an issue for historians. Historians establish facts, but the lawyer judges whether these facts are in violation of international law." In his conclusion, he states, he does not consider that the Genocide Convention is retroactive and does not accept the view of those legal scholars who believe that the treaty was pre-existing international law, and thus argue that it could be applied retrospectively. The Turkish government has submitted its petition to the ICJ stating that the events of 1950 affected the Armenian community as victims of war and not victims of genocide. They have represented within their argument that there were other national co-victims of war, Arsenians, Greeks, not only the Armenians. Even though 20 countries have officially recognized the events as genocide, based on scholars and historical references, the international court system and the British government has not accepted the term genocide to describe the events. The word genocide has been used by the Armenian community and academic scholars. Armenia has a long history of foreign invaders who have persecuted their culture and society, as for example, the Persians, the Roman Empire, and the Turks. Armenia has been referred to as the Greater Iran because of their cultural and historical ties. They've also been governed by the Ottomans, the Russians. Russia had ruled their country for several years. Not until 1991 did Armenia proclaim its independence. The displacement of Armenians who live outside their country has been the case for over 1,700 years, mainly because of foreign occupation. Genocide is not the reason why Armenian communities have transplanted to other countries throughout Europe and the Americas. Currently, there are 11 million Armenians who live outside their homeland, based on the 2011 census. Current projections state that 3.2 live in Armenia, but an unofficial consensus has reduced the Armenian population to 2.8. The main reason so many Armenians have lived outside their country is not because of alleged genocide, but because of lack of economic opportunity based on their own current market. The current market has been supported by the Russian and Iranian economy. Armenia currently has import and export energy and trade agreements with Iran and Russia. In addition, Armenia has had a poor record on human rights. The country has been labeled partly free by the Freedom House organization, which monitors worldwide activities for human rights. The question is not if the Turks engaged in mass killing or that it took place, but did the Turkish government commit genocide? Is this premise based on scholarly evidence or legal fact? Thank you.
All right. Well, the argument gets a little bit of clarification as to what the controversy is. It's really focusing on this legal definition of genocide and whether or not the events that are described by the advocate fit into that particular category. I think that you could simplify the argument a little bit with your declarative claims. You don't really follow the structure of the advocate's argument as far as I can tell, because I don't really get a summary of those points except for in the introduction. Your points seem to respond primarily to the legal issue, which I think is the way it ought to go. For some reason, there's this interjection of information about Armenia and how they are involved in the production of MiGs. I don't know why that was mentioned. I don't know how it relates to the issue. I thought maybe there was going to be some human rights issue that came up later that dealt with it, but it never happened. So that seems like it's completely out of context. The definition by the International Court of Justice and the UN that they are the acknowledged body on these issues, I think you do establish a good premise for that. I think that's the way that you want to go, is put it, let's keep it simple. Here's the group that determines whether or not it's genocide. It's not appropriate for historians to make that decision, and the events that have occurred in these situations have been explained by a variety of other people as fitting into these other categories. And that's basically what your argument comes down to. I think you need to get those declarative sentences out there. I can hear the inferences being made all over the place, but there's not a numerical structure for those points. You do make the declarative claims, but often after you've presented the information, and you usually want to make the argument first so that we know why that information is being presented. But I thought that the response ultimately is relatively clear, how your arguments apply to the things that are being said here. So I like that. I just think it needs more structure. All right, thank you.